I so wish that would have been live.
Oh man, that's good. Yeah, sorry, I gotta go. My baby's crying.
Really good.
How much money did I steal? No, I'm gonna go. Sorry.
Yeah, no, sorry. Rug what? Oh, baby. Sorry, I got.
All right. There's Anyway, so we're live 2 hours earlier than normal with Michael O'Sullivan. I mean, seriously, is that your real name? Because it's a pretty awesome name. Like, it really is.
It is my real name. It is. I should have. If I came up with a pseudonym or an acronym or whatever, it should have been a bit more exciting than.
No, honestly, we're jealous of your name.
Yeah, exactly.
That's like we thought that's what you picked.
Corey's like the best name ever.
It isn't.
Jimmy's good.
Pretty good.
Like Jimmy's solid, especially considering like Jimmy having the name Jimmy makes sense because he's actually like a really thoughtful philosopher. Wordy, but his name makes sense. Like I share a name with fucking like Corey Haim, Corey Hart. Like that's none of this is good. Name me like one Corey who isn't like boy bandish. Can you?
Isn't the singer? Correct me if I'm wrong. The singer of Slipknot isn't that Corey Taylor?
Okay, tell me more.
Making that up?
I did not. Sure.
I might be making that up.
I don't hear any babies crying right now. So let's go with that. I didn't know that, and that's like the coolest one that I think I've heard yet.
Yeah, I mean, I could just be lying. Just so you might want to Google
great.
it.
No, I'm comfortable with it. So yeah, so far your podcasting is going very well. Just want to throw that out there.
Thank you.
Super funny and engaging content.
Oh, are you talking about now or just in general?
All of the above. Yeah.
All of the above. Oh, I appreciate that. Yeah. Thank you. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just.
That's the best way. As long as our whole thing is, we get together and drink some coffee and have some fun. Well, I drink coffee. Jimmy drinks shriveled ball juice.
Is that what makes
his phrase? Is
that what drives Jimmy's intellectual credibility? Then
I think so. It's like me with scotch, right? Like it's like up to a certain point, it's like smarter, Cliff.
Usually, luckily, everyone's in meetings by the time I hit the cliff, so I'm not there. Right?
Yeah, except you come to our meetings.
Yes.
Sweet fucking Jesus.
Corey, have you ever drank on one of these meetings at 6 a.m.?
Yeah.
I haven't, but I want to. There's
next time we do it,
right? Like when we get all the things to a point where it's like we're okay now, right? So we've got a lot of shit to figure out before we sort of. I think like once the team has like 3 to 6 months runway after this transition, then I think it's going to be like bottle of scotch at 7 a.m. with Jimmy. Feel free to join us, and it's going to that'll be wrong. Yeah, that'll be the start of my day off. I can't come to work because by 8 o'clock I'll be in the bag because I can't drink anymore. I kind of.
Or I mean 3 p.m. because then I'll still be awake. You guys.
Yeah, that's the thing. If you want to start drinking in the morning at your time, threaten me with a good time. I'm all right with
that. So Bywire news. I mean, this is super interesting for me. I don't know even how long you guys have been around, but you kind of came out of nowhere for me. And Corey and I kind of met we were working on other social platforms, kind of on EOS. Or with ESIO, and some of them were okay, like they were doing okay, but it's kind of hard to put social or news platforms on the blockchain. But I think it's probably really important to do it as well, right? Like because there's so much benefits that can happen when something's hashed to the blockchain, I think. And so I'm kind of curious about Bywire News, what it is, and I want to dive in because I think you guys are EOS exclusively, right? You're only covering EOS, really.
In terms of news, yeah, not tech wise, but in terms of news coverage,
right?
Like we wanted to focus on what we could be good at and what we could add value to, and we understood EOS. People weren't really covering it, and so we covered it. It wasn't really rocket science for us. we just did it. It's part of our earliest adopter strategy. Effectively, we wanted to obviously win over everyone in EOS. So doing EOS news coverage made sense, but also there was a gap in the market. I think there was a lot of people doing good kind of talk shows about EOS, lots of good podcasts, lots of good videos like you guys and everyone else. but there wasn't any good kind of consistent written content. And that's what we wanted to do. And we wanted to try and bring together the EOS community through that kind of truthful, accurate, and non-sycophantastic. I don't think that's the word, but you know what I mean. Non like yes men kind of news coverage, just genuine news coverage. That was our drive and ambition. So yeah, that's what was our focus. I mean, we do want to cover more than just EOS, but I think we're good at it. So double down on what you're good at.
So
definitely double down. Yeah, I mean, we are actually going for the sycophantic niche. Actually, that was sort of our goal. It's totally not true. I'm totally picking up that. What did you say? Non-sycophant? No,
non-sycophantastic. I think I said.
Yeah, no, dude. If that's not a word, like fuck, it is now. That's No, I'm 100% in for that.
This is how words are coined.
Sycophantastic. Like sycophantastic is the name of my new country band.
I would buy that record.
So you are the founder of Bywire News, and you got a bunch of different authors working for you. So can you explain to us, like, how does the blockchain play into it?
Sure. So I came from a political background, and I used to work as a political consultant. And at the end of our last election, which we lost, which obviously I did a great job, we did an analysis to see why. And aside from my own shortcomings, the main reason was the fact that the media was effectively biased. Democracy's been gamed in the UK. Democracy's been gamed in the US. So we wanted to kind of return truth, trust, and accountability to news. And the blockchain was a way for us to do that, because with the blockchain we can ensure data integrity. So we have politicians here in the UK who literally have gone back to their blogs from 2 years ago and edited them to pretend that they were talking about things that they weren't talking about 2 years ago, things like that. So obviously with data integrity on the blockchain, we track all the revisions. But most importantly, something that was really important for me was defeating censorship. So corporations, governments, you can block IPs, you can block domain names, you can buy news corporations and suppress news coverage. So like with the blockchain, all of our news is decentralized. It's stored on the IPFS, it's hashed to the mainnet. So you can literally take the content directly from the blockchain. And in the next few weeks, we're integrating the library peer-to-peer network. And that's kind of like built on the old Napster kind of, peer-to-peer exchange kind of system. And that means that our content is available for everyone all the time. There'll be no way to block it at all. So you'll be able to pull it directly from the blockchain. You'll be able to take it directly from the peer-to-peer network, or you can go to our website. And the blockchain was the only way to do that. But it also helps us with accountability. So all of our journalists have to have a blockchain account. We have to know who they are, and they can only publish under their account name. So there's no way for anyone else to publish under their name. So putting these kind of pillars together, it was just about having the reader feel confident that the news that they're about to consume is trustworthy. And in the UK, only 46% of people trust the news that they choose. Sad, right? 46%.
Yeah, that's like because the other whatever version is worse.
Yeah,
right. Like
yeah.
that's like yeah, it's not.
It's slightly less fake. Yeah, so so that was a great business opportunity for us. Just try and be honest with our news coverage. But I understand why some news companies aren't. It's difficult to create a repeatable and scalable business model. Therefore, you're vulnerable to hostile takeovers or to just being taken over by people with money. And people with money who have a lot of it, over centralization of capital, they will buy news organizations. And if you buy a news organization, you can influence the population, or you can leverage your own brand and reputation, and you can improve it. And that's what they do. So we wanted to build technology that would stop that from happening effectively. We bloody did it, and we're really proud.
So how many authors do you have now? About.
So like full time, we have 3 authors full time, but then we have loads and loads of freelancers, and we work with Reuters, we work with AP, and they help us with some international news coverage. Some areas we're not strong in, like sport, that doesn't really need much kind of inflection. So we partner with those guys as well. So that's really helpful for us, and we'll rewrite a lot of their work as well, and put our own flavor on it. It's basically like 80, probably I would say 70-80% of news you read in the New York Times, in the Wall Street Journal, whatever, is effectively just AP and Reuters repackaged. And the other 20% is the individual news companies' actual journalism.
So I'll pull that up here. This one. There you go. So people can see it. But yeah, like, so it's just a really simple site. Actually, I like the way that it looks too, because it's pretty newsy. I
mean, it looks amazing.
It does. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, it doesn't look like, a lot of times you go to a blockchain site and it's cheesy, to be honest, but like it does really look good. And I mean, it looks really professional.
Well, we are professional web developers, so
yeah, but like, you know
good.
What I mean, right? Like, I'm not. Yeah, there's a lot of, but there's a lot of people who just build.
I know what you mean, and you're right. Like, for us, we wanted to kind of make it so the user didn't even know they were interacting with the blockchain. We wanted to make that blockchain crypto seamless integration. We managed to do that, but we probably forgot the crypto audience as we did that. So like, we've been creating, so if you create your own account on Bywire, we just create an EOS account for you automatically. We automatically assign resources to your account. You can start using it right away. But we haven't integrated the Anchor wallet login. So like, that was a bit of an issue. So we invented this, simple to create EOS account creation system like 3 years ago. But we still haven't integrated Anchor. We are working on that at the moment. That's our kind of next step. So I think once we've integrated Anchor, then we'll probably onboard a lot more people from the EOS on crypto sphere, if you like. But at the moment, it's largely like, EOS readers, but on the whole, it's non-crypto people who use the platform. So we always say Bywire is it's a news platform that uses EOS. It's not an EOS news platform.
Yeah, so do you find that? Yeah, I'm kind of curious about that, right? So if you get a lot of people who aren't crypto users, who aren't EOS users, right? And they're just coming in and they're logging in, and then you're creating their resources for them. Like, that's almost unheard of in EOS, to be honest. Like, that was one of EOS's biggest problems from back early in the day, was like, nobody could create an account, right? I mean, now Wombat does it for users, but like, so once those accounts are created on here, and the resources and that are funded, do people own those keys? Are they able to interact with those keys beyond the platform, or no?
So at the moment, no. And that's probably one of our weaknesses. The reason we did that was, once we started offering free accounts, we woke up one morning and 600 accounts had been created. And obviously, because we didn't provide the keys, they weren't able to take them away, but they just created them anyway. I think it was bots. So in a kind of panic state, we didn't really know how to deal with that problem. So we just thought, look, you can transfer in and out from your account. That will work fine, but we'll just keep the accounts. Like, your EOS account is linked to your email address, which is linked to your Bywire account. If you want to transfer Wirebit tokens in and out, you can do that. That's no problem. But we'll hold your keys. And it's kind of a critical part of the business, actually, in the sense that I would say probably 30% of users, won't use their account for a week or so. So if their account's not being used for, I think it's 48 hours, we auto reassign their resources to an account that's using it. So we're constantly recycling the resources, which is a really innovative way to approach it. And we did that because we didn't have any money. So we just couldn't afford to pay for everyone's resources. So we decided to create my CTO decided to create the system to recycle and reassign it all automatically. And that's a really cool feature. It's probably one of the negative aspects of us working in stealth mode. We should have been shouting about this stuff probably a lot longer, and maybe making some of it open source, which is something that, thanks to Pomelo, we're going to look to do as well.
So so you said, like, it's not all EOS. It's there's some other integrations as well. I'm kind of curious about that.
Sure. So we've integrated with the IPFS, the Interplanetary File System, and that's that's decentralized hosting. So the way it works is we'll create a news article. We'll create a block on the IPFS with the hash of the article. That content itself then will push to the IPFS. The hash of the IPFS will then be sent to the EOS blockchain. What we've done, which is pretty cool, is you can take the hash from the EOS blockchain, you can put it into a reader, and it will just basically pull the whole article just from the hash directly from the EOS blockchain. So you don't even need to interact directly with the IPFS. But should our servers be hacked or go down or whatever, or our domain be blocked, then all of the information is decentralized on the IPFS. And as I say, we're integrating the library peer-to-peer network at the moment. And that has a desktop app, and they run Odyssey as well, which is it's a separate company, but they're a YouTube like a YouTube killer, if you like. They're a decentralized YouTube. So we're hoping to kind of put our videos onto that as well. But I do love the idea of peer-to-peer. It was a great idea 10 years ago. It's still a great idea today. And I think the technology we have today is more suited for peer-to-peer than it was 10 years ago. And the use cases are much better. And I think if you can get the news on a peer-to-peer network, that's it. It can't ever be blocked by any government or any regime. And that's really, really exciting. And that's what we have to be. We have to be in a situation where truth, trust, and transparency is returned to news, but it's also impossible to remove it.
Yeah, I think that becomes really interesting too when, as an accountability function for you guys. Yep. Right. It's like, because a lot of people say, truth and accountability and yada, yada, yada. And like, the vast majority of them are utterly full of shit. And because there's just so much economic interest and political and influence interest in being able to say whatever you want, that that just kind of gets out there. But having everything on chain, like at any point anyone can go back and go, okay, well, how did this age, right? And you end up having I think over a certain amount of time, organizations like yourselves, which I absolutely think are the future, are going to become of necessity better and better and better, because you'll have the weight of any errors you make, but also the wind at your backs of anything that you sort of got in front of, and it'll be on there permanently.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, I think it was someone from the Washington Post that described news as the first draft of history. So we're always going to get shit wrong. We're going to. We have to rush to get stuff out sometimes. And because of that, you're going to make some mistakes, but that's okay. So long as you can correct your mistakes and there is a history of why a mistake was made or the reasoning or whatever, that's perfectly reasonable. And actually,
100%.
Yeah, and actually, I think that's what's lacking from society today. There's like a need for politicians to always be right, never admit they're wrong. It's like, as a politician, when am I going to not learn any new information when I become a politician? I have access to all of the Senate's library and the Congress library. I'm going to learn no information, so I'm going to make pledges prior to getting into office to never raise tax or whatever it may be. So I just think it's really redundant. I think we need to have a free flow of information, and I think I'm really against censorship, really, of any type. But I'm also against the proliferation of fake information and sharing it around the world. So that's why we create an artificial intelligence fake news detector. It's not really a fake news detector. That's what we call it colloquially. It's a shortcut to what it does. But we don't want to get sued in the future by very rich news organizations. So it's more of like a trust index. And the way it works is we basically got our hands on as much fake news and information as we could, put it through our artificial neural network, put it into our machine learning, created some algorithms, some black box algorithms as well. And basically the AI can spot fake news now at a rate of about 94%. And we think that's the future.
Way to bury the news, dude. Like, that's pretty hardcore.
Mm-hmm. That's what we want. That's what we wanted. Loads of companies are trying to approach this problem in a very complex way, and we did it in a really simple way, and that's why ours works. So you've got groups of PhDs and universities trying to use AI to define what a fact is, but facts change over time, facts evolve, subjectivity, especially in political reporting, but what they all lack, or what they all seem to forget, is fake news is written in a particular way with a particular purpose. It has to reach as many people as possible. It has to go viral. Otherwise, it has no benefit. It has to go viral within it.
It's gonna be in the semantics encoded in the kind of language that's getting used.
Yeah,
more 100%. Often than not. That exactly. I mean, that theory sounds entirely plausible to me.
Yeah, because if you write fake news from a non-reputable source, and you just basically write it in a really straight, ordinary way, no one's going to share it because they're going to read it and they're not going to be. It's not going to be sensationalized.
Right.
They're not going to be emotionally motivated by the content, so they're either going to just not read it because it's going to be too long. They don't want something short, and therefore they're not going to share it.
Right.
And if they don't share it, then it's ineffective. So you have to have that same fake news model in order to be successful. Our AI can detect that model.
Did you look at the grade 4 language maximum short clip, super bombastic, utterly fucking insane, any quote from Trump to come up with your algorithm?
Mm-hmm. We did.
Show's over.
2006. He's got a baby.
Yeah, my baby's crying.
His baby's crying.
Dude, no, I thought I was being so clever. Yeah, no, that's what we did.
That's literally how it works. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. All right. Well, I mean, I've got like 4 more podcasts today, and they're all gonna suck compared to this. So it's just like, sorry, future.
Yeah, I mean, we just gave it as much fake information as we could. Right. Obviously, human checked fake information, and then we were able to just create that model, and that model was able to then. It's kind of scary how the AI can just determine this stuff itself, and it's kind of, we've written a lot of our own algorithms to support it, but some of it's black box, and that's quite interesting. So it makes its own determinations. And yeah, that's happening across the board with the AI. And
right. I mean, that's when you do machine learning, and just for anybody that doesn't know, and chances are everybody who watches the show totally does, right? But you're basically able to throw in just massive data sets, right? Where you can make some determinations of this is a cat picture, this is a dog picture. But what we're really saying is these are articles that we know are utter dog shit, and these are ones that are going out with effective information. And you could put in 10,000 on either side, and it can analyze, everything from the length of the sentences to whatever, right? You're not telling the AI algorithm which one is which. You're basically saying interview these data sets for whatever possible thing you can, and then, spit out better and better determinations on either side. And what he's talking about when he talks about black box is these things get so complex that we kind of don't know how they're making the determination anymore, right? There's a huge thing in AI now where it's getting complex enough that they almost want to create other AI scripts that are just watching what the AI is doing in real time, so that it can actually show us how are you making this determination, so it's not as black box. It's deeply, deeply fascinating, and really this is just the beginning of the arc of how we're going to use these sort of intelligence tools to sort of increase our understanding and our ability to kind of suss out what is a fact, or how do we determine in easier ways what those things work. And of course, it's not perfect, right? There's I think an algorithm a while ago that they were using it in healthcare, and they basically ran deep learning on it or what have you, and it basically said that everybody who I think it was an insulin thing or something like that, but they basically if you were diabetic and you needed a transplant, they just sent you home. The AI just did this and because it doesn't know what it doesn't know. So it's just triage. Those people are they're gonna die. You just send them home, right? And there's just all sorts of it's funny, they've also found coded racial bias in police records or whatever, and the AI had no understanding of that, so it basically just ended up doing things like that. But what you're talking about, to me anyway, it seems like a really elegant and useful way to determine between the two, because anybody English major Jimmy over here is basically an English professor as far as I'm concerned. He's what happens if I didn't pick up a guitar and quit school. But that discerning the different kinds of language that get used is such a perfect way to do it, because you can spot it, right? Like the second I start reading anything that like within 2 sentences, I'm like, oh, this is fucking dog shit. And because it's designed to flick dummies in the amygdala because they'll effectively believe anything.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, exactly right. But I mean, fake information is not necessarily even just for dummies, if you like. You know, you could be a rocket scientist and still fall for fake news just because it's targeted at your own inner desires and fears or whatever.
For sure.
Yeah, it's psychometrically targeted often, especially if the person who's delivering it is competent and they're using high-level AI and they figured a way around some of the ad blockers or whatever. And that can be that's the most dangerous thing, I think, facing society, because if there is a surge of fake information, we all then lose our common language. And if we lose our common language, then we can't progress as a society, right? We can't. Right. We have to learn everything ourselves individually. I mean,
that's really important, right? Because and the way you put that is important, I think, because like in the States, it's sort of in stark relief, right? Like there's the blue side and red side, and like the language and the way that they understand the world is bifurcating. What it seems like exponentially, right? And it just it gets to a certain point where like you put and this, I'm a recovering political junkie myself, so like I'm looking at this from having been far too on the inside of it. You put two of those people in a room and they're not even speaking the same language, exactly to your point, right? Like it's a context problem, right? Like the information that's been driven in through the mirror effect into their brain over and over and over and over and over again, developing bias and then developing a social bias because everybody who's in their social group and in their social algorithm on Facebook or whatever is saying exactly the same things. To anybody who's outside of that circle, they're going to seem like a total fucking alien. And that only ends in one way, and it's not good.
Yeah, I mean, the US is, more kind of disjointed and disconnected than it's ever been before. I think 25% of Democrats.
There was a little civil war, but we're moving in that direction.
I think 25% of Democrats believe the Republicans are the greatest threat to the United States above any other threat.
They're right, but other than that,
and 1/3 of Republicans think the same about
exactly right. Like it's we're everybody on the Democratic side just wants to make everybody S&M loving lesbians, which for the record is totally true.
Yeah, I mean that sounds great.
Right? But like, exactly. Threaten me with a good time.
Yeah, exactly. But I think like that's a natural byproduct of having two parties. And Dan's new political paradigm, which suggests all politicians should be independent. I mean, that's what I believe the US was supposed to be originally, made up of independent politicians. Right. And actually, if you think about it, it's party political politics that has destroyed democracy, along with the over-centralization of capital, allowing individuals to buy news companies and changing the population.
Right, right.
So I think if we had more independence or a system of independent politicians, it would be a much better democracy. It'd be much fairer because you would have real debates and you'd have to win over people rather than I just have to pick that because that's what my team says I have to pick.
Right. Well, and you get put into the news funnel and the money raising funnel, and like I've watched politicians get constrained, in the space of a year, getting into that system. Like the incentive structure is completely and totally broken, and like surviving that with any integrity at all is sort of like that's why some politicians end up looking like magical unicorns if they survive it even remotely. But I think I'm glad you brought up Dan with Eden and Fractally now. I keep thinking in terms of everything we're doing with the uplift and NFTs and DAOs now this year for us. We're thinking about leaning into the future of the way that human beings collaborate and enjoy benefits together, and we're superseding legacy infrastructure by doing the things in the way that we're doing them. And what Eden is doing now, it feels to me like Dan's just going, okay, like all the political system, like trying to fight from the inside, you might as well just like piss on a mountain. You're not going to do anything. They're not even going to notice that you're annoyed, right? Like there's too much, legacy infrastructure and momentum in that infrastructure to have any effect. So he's like, yeah, hold my beer. We can create digital nations that are all fractal, and we can basically just experimenting with the way that this should be going forward. And, the second that Elon Musk goes to Mars, he's going to just end up, copying whatever Dan Larimer comes up with. And that'll give the distance in the same way that the pioneers coming to the United States gave us the chance to get some democracy over here, right? So like that, being on the leading edge of it feels like the only thing left, frankly. I'm glad that you guys are sort of tackling that from the news side. Sorry for the rant. I mean, I'm not that sorry.
No. I mean, it's great, and thanks. You guys are tackling it from the metaverse kind of side. So, I was going to ask you, like, what's been happening with Uplift recently? I know there's been some drama. I don't know. I was wondering if I could get an update.
I mean, yeah, like just plug that into your fake news thing and see what you come up with.
Right? Yeah. So I have to process everything through my professional filter, which, for the record, when we're a DAO, I won't have to do anymore. Long story short, Legend owns 97% of the Uplift. I own 3%, based on a deal that we made right at the beginning. And this is when nobody put much stock in the Uplift being the little scrappy beast that it is. And so we haven't had control over any of the funds up to this point. And we've been all kind of working along. Legend got an opportunity to go and move specifically in a fine art and music direction, and that couldn't include metaverse. So we had to figure out something. A bunch of things happened, and basically I was like, just give it back to me. Just like sell it back to me. Use all my equity in Legend, and the team actually all decided to the team suddenly didn't have anything to do. So they decided to come and work with me on, what comes next. And so we're basically able to buy the Uplift back. Now there's tons of things, and you'll see how this year goes, that, working with, like, Legend is focused on really integrating with legacy infrastructures, right? They're planning on going after, private equity in the stock market, and, being, really on the right side of every potential letter of the law, which I think is extremely dangerous for them, by the way. Somebody should let them know. But like, that's the goal. That's their goal, right? And they're smart people. They, if anyone can figure it out, they have a good chance to do it. But it doesn't work for us, right? Like, we had to wrap ourselves in knots trying to figure out how to do Upliftium, which we created some innovation, which is kind of fun, like having the in-game token, release it as NFT, that kind of thing. But going to a DAO and doing the kind of revenue sharing that we're planning, like, we wouldn't have been able to do that under the aegis of Legend anyway. So, like, ultimately, like, this is the biggest opportunity that the Uplift will have ever seen. The ability to have us basically buy it back. We need to raise a little bit more money to finish that off. And then we get to just start doing crazy shit, right? Like, we're going to DAO within weeks. We're going to be dropping DAO tokens to all the landholders over the next 6 months. The team is going to be major DAO token holders. And it was a rough couple weeks, I'm not gonna lie. It was just a lot of uncertainty, right? Huge opportunity, but like, trying to figure out exactly what was gonna happen. And now, like, I'm just starting to get more excited by the hour. Like, there's some details that we need to figure out. Obviously, we did to raise $250,000 to finish off the buyout, but that is going okay, and we'll figure out the rest of it. And then it's just once we get the purchase agreement, once we get all that stuff squared away, then everyone's gonna see our team's gonna hit the ground at about 100 million miles an hour. 100 million, Jimmy. 100 million. I can numbers. So definitely wouldn't pass the fake news test.
Well, I guess that's a cautionary tale then, isn't it, for young entrepreneurs? Don't sell too much equity if you can avoid it at the beginning, because if you do, you lose control.
I mean, I was brand new to business, and yeah, I mean, in retrospect, there's a lot of things that I should have done differently. But also, like, it just, it happened the way it happened, right? We don't have a time machine. All the lessons were learned. I think in retrospect, we will look back at this moment as something that probably had to happen almost exactly in the way that it did. And, as much hair as I've lost, in the last 2 weeks, that kernel of like, oh shit, this is kind of the opportunity that we needed to kind of actually move forward in the direction that the team and I know we need to kind of go in. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely well, and as well, like, make I think most people in crypto and NFTs are already thinking in this way. But when you get the chance to interface and basically get equity from, SEC regulated, equity providers, don't fucking do it. Just sit down, have a glass of scotch, and do something else.
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
well, I mean, you said they followed the letter of the law, and that sounds like another company.
Everyone right now is targeting where they think the puck is going, right? And they're making the bet that the SEC will hyper regulate literally everything and make everything a security, and they're basically following that path, assuming that's going to be the case, right? Which in crypto is almost no one is doing that, right? So it's an interesting bet. They're interfacing and I think courting a lot of big companies that are tied into that legacy system already. So probably to work with them at all, you would need to be speaking in that language and assessing risk in that way, right? But where we live, assessing risk in that way makes no sense. We're looking at the same gray area they're looking at. And I was thinking about this morning, Jimmy. So somebody put an article up about the telephone companies getting really, really sad and mad about VoIP, right? You remember voice over internet protocol back in the day, right? Back before just talking over the internet was just fucking free. Fuck off, right? I remember a $300, long distance fucking call or whatever. It's completely absurd, right? So the phone company is really, really offended by this new internet thing that's going to make them obsolete. So this would be, I think personally, what they're doing, or what legacy type companies are doing, is trying to play in the phone company's game with the FTC and forgetting that the internet's going to make all of it obsolete, right? And this new technology is going to make all of that stuff obsolete in a very, very meaningful way. Is the bet that we're making. And I think that we're assessing risk in the appropriate way, going forward doing that. But it's going to be interesting to see, right? Everybody's throwing spaghetti at the wall because there is that gray area. People don't actually know exactly how this is going to play out in the future, and so it's going to come down to the for us anyway. From every smart person I talked to about this whole thing, we're headed in a very good direction to actually be in extremely good faith in what is going to be coming, right? We don't want to operate in bad faith and be collaborating outside of where we think sort of the regulatory environment is going to be. Or we're actually tackling this in a way that is meant to be on the right side of what's fair and what's good and what needs to happen. But yeah, I think the on the other side, it's just I don't know, the phone companies are totally going to win, right? It's going to be landlines forever. Everyone knows that.
Yeah, of course. What was the question?
I don't know.
The question was drama. But
I lost the plot about halfway through that. Yeah. So the uplift.
But I mean, to be fair as well. To be fair.
Oh.
Was I not being fair?
No. You gotta go watch about 10 seasons of Letterkenny.
Letterkenny, right. To be fair, there were a lot of good things that came out of it too, right? There was drama, but there were some really interesting things, of course, that we learned, right? And we've got some really good friends over at Yoshi Drops, some people that we met, some of the collaborations that came out with the music and the art, and even in the uplift, some of the builds and things like that. So I think. For anyone out there in the community that's watching this, Corey really summed it up. I think both companies are going to go and do their own thing the way that they need to do it. And right. There's a good chance that they could both be very successful in their own ways.
Yep.
I mean, so, I don't know. I'm a little bit torn on what's going to happen, right? I think that America tends to drag their heels when it comes to regulation. I'm not sure about over where you guys are in Britain and England. I know Australia seems to be quite on top of it actually. The regulation that they have is quite forthcoming, and it's out there, and they're actually looking at crypto from what I can gather. There are standards and rules at least where people should know, but I also think that. A lot of it too has there's a lot of people who are in the industry that are probably holding it back because they can be, cowboys, right? Like they can do things that they wouldn't normally be able to do in the real business world. And they can still get away with it, right? And so I'm kind of interested to see that play out. Like I want everything to be open and clear and transparent, right? Like, and that's the benefit of blockchain. But there's still a lot of people doing shady shit in the background that like aren't doing that, right? Like there's a lot of companies like rug pulls, like things that are happening, especially with different, like there was another Minecraft one on Ethereum. They sold a whole bunch of stuff and then they just ran away with the money, right? Like there was for ridiculous amounts, right? Like we see this at the NFTs all the time, right? Like, I mean, it's not quite as bad as it was, back in the early days, but like, even on EOS, look at how many, projects came out and then just disappeared, right? Like look at how many ICOs came out on Ethereum back in 2017 and just disappeared, right? And then you have people saying, well, this is why we only invest in like top cryptos. And it's funny when, they get reminded that BitConnect was a top crypto at one point, right? Like it was right. So I want to see.
I mean, Cardano still is.
Right. Yeah, fair enough. But like, I think that openness and that transparency that you want to bring, to the world of news. Like, I hope that it hits the world of business and the world of blockchain and crypto too, right? Like the last article I read on Bywire actually was about Dan and John. And so John Williamson, who's the founder of Violet, he's actually been working with Dan recently on the Clarion OS team. And they're using basically the BitShares to be able to meld a social platform into governance with Eden. And it's called Fractally. And if you haven't read it yet, go check it out because it's a great little article that you guys put together over there. But like, I think that's kind of, a lot of people give Dan a hard time, but like, he's still here. He's still in the ecosystem and he's still trying to build a world that's fair, right?
Yep.
Like, and he basically he left, Block One because he wasn't able to do what he wanted to do, or, we don't really know the full story, but like, it's pretty obvious now that his hands were pretty tied, right? And so he's trying to wrap all of these things into one, right? And I think that's why a lot of people are here, but then there's a lot of people who are, polarized as well. It's like, no, like, everything should be free for all. Like, it's basically the Democrats and the Republicans in the blockchain industry, right? Like, it's like, yeah, we want honesty, we want transparency.
We have more than two tribes, but still.
Yeah, right. But like, it's just really interesting to me, and I'm interested to see how it plays out. So I'll do my gratitude. I'm grateful for honesty and transparency in the blockchain space. I think this is really important, right? And I think, the blockchain doesn't lie. You just have to know where to look, right? And so I want one of those little bullshit detectors that you have, and I want to put it in my shoe. And like when I'm walking down the street, right, and somebody says something to me, it starts beeping, and people are like, "Why is your shoe beeping?" And I'm like, "Yeah, because somebody needs a kick."
I didn't even think about that use case. That's such a good use case. We'll start working on that right after this.
but I mean, like, it's the same thing with it's the same thing with blockchain too, right? Like I want to get to the point where this AI can just search through this stuff and find like nefarious things on the blockchain, dumb things that people put there, right? Like, it's fun for me because I've been sitting on this for a long time. My favorite thing, like if someone ever pisses me off, is going to be start hashing things to the blockchain. That's really fun because it never goes away, right? Like, anyway, go ahead.
No, you're totally right, and I lost my train of thought again. Sorry, it's more coffee. No, that's quite right. You should be afforded the time to rant. Dang it. So my gratitude for this morning. I'm grateful for Fractally and Eden. Like, just looking at really any examples like that where you're building the replacement, and ignoring trying to fix legacy systems, because the legacy systems will tell you when they're too broken, right? Like, nobody was going to fix landlines. It wasn't going to happen, right? and nobody's going to fix the current, economic and political situation on Earth right now because there's too much momentum. Just billions and billions and billions of dollars, and to your point, Michael, like that's just getting more centralized all the time because the incentive structure and the legal structure and the tax structure is designed to make that happen, right? Like that, even if you didn't want to do that, it's still going to happen, right? It's pretty nuts. So building outside of it with technology that is sufficiently fantastic to actually circumvent and then basically just replace it is to me, I think it's the only way forward, and it's probably going to take a long time, and it's going to feel like we're beating our heads against a brick wall for a long time, but maybe not as long as people think.
Yeah, I think it could happen a lot faster than people think. But just to go back to what you were talking about with Dan, I mean, I think you're right. Dan's obviously a genius and he's creating phenomenal work. But sometimes I think people put too much emphasis on the version of Dan they want Dan to be. When Dan's just Dan, he's going to create, he's going to do his thing. And really, it's up to us as the community to take his work, to learn from it, to challenge it, and then to integrate it into the network. Just because Dan said something doesn't make it so. I mean, it usually does.
Wait, what?
I'm British. We don't like Americans telling us what to do. No, I'm just kidding. Like, whenever...
that's funny. I think Americans feel the same way about you. Yeah. Imperialism. I'm Canadian. I could say stupid shit like that.
But like, so I think Dan gets sometimes overly criticized for things that are not in his control.
Oh, I think everyone who has the balls to build something, there's the 5% of people that I think they just, it's their job to, I'm starting to try and think of them as like, because we have people that take on the red team aspect on our team to basically bulletproof our ideas as much as we possibly can, right? And so like I'm trying to envision the snarky little shitheads on the internet, you know who you are, as that, right? Because like it's not always that they're not going to be able to provide good information or whatever. It's just like they're going to haters gonna hate, potatoes gonna potate, right? And I've seen people go after Dan in the same way, and it's really like he shouldn't have to be perfect. Right, like that's he can't be. He's human. Right, exactly. It's like, well said. Yeah, and obviously he's iterating and doing a lot of work or whatever, and it's clear what his intent is, and it's really, really strong and really good, and he's coming up with ideas that are really, really important. And yeah, I mean, like we should all in this space where everything is innovating and changing by the day, give everybody else the grace and permission to fail. Because almost everyone will at some point. It's inevitable, right?
That's how you learn. Failure is critical to learning.
Fail fast.
Yeah.
Pick them up, dust them off, and try something new, better, and awesome, and learn from it. And that's how we're all going to make it.
Yeah. Yeah. You like build, test, iterate.
Yep.
Just follow that circle around and around until you get it better. I mean, in politics, there's this whole notion that the politician always has to be right. Sometimes Dan has that. People like say that about Dan. He, Steam it wasn't perfect, or delegated proof of stake isn't perfect, or the block producer setup isn't perfect. It's like, well, that's how technology works. That's how we build new paradigms. They evolve, right? We spend time testing things out. We see what works, what doesn't. We're rebuilding the world in an agile environment. We just need a giant Trello board to make sure that we're on course.
Where is the giant Trello board? Maybe that's Pomelo now.
Yeah, I think it probably is. Yeah. So where do you think then, like the EOS space is going to go over the next year or two? Do you think Dan's innovations are going to drive the resurgence we need, or do you think it's going to continue its decline?
Michael, what are you grateful for?
I thought I had a baby crying. What am I grateful for?
I will try to answer that question. I'm literally trying to buy time.
Okay. What am I grateful for? I'm grateful for freedom of speech and the ability to have a shared language.
All right. You're getting two.
I mean, I can say my little piece on the answer to that question. And I think you're a really good example of this. I think the technology behind EOS is so strong and so powerful that when people figure out how to apply it and use it properly, there's going to be a lot of sites that use it that people don't even know are using it. And like you said, there's a lot of really intelligent, really smart developers that are still in it for the tech over on EOS. They're not chasing the money to other places. And that's not to say anything bad about other EOSI blockchains, right? Like Wax is amazing, it's brilliant, but it was built for a different use case, right? And they're excelling, right? FIO as well. But with EOS in particular, like some of the people that we've met and some of the people that we know and have worked with even over the years, they're just building really cool stuff, right? And so I think like in 2 years, is it going to be a top 10 blockchain? I don't know, but I think there's going to be a lot of real world applications or real world sites or real world things being done with EOS, and it will be useful, right? Like, is EOS going to go to $1,000? I mean, probably not. But like I just think it's not going to go away either, right? Does it really matter if it's in the top 10? I mean, if it's being used and it's making the world a better place, I mean, as weird as that sounds, right?
I don't think that does sound weird. I think
right.
I think it makes a lot of sense, and I'm glad you went first because I think you're framing it in a useful way, right? Like that, I'm bullish on ENF and Yves Larose. I'm extremely bullish on Eden and Fractally, but not as an economic function, right? Like they could build it all on EOS. It might have absolutely nothing to do with the price of EOS in the future. I believe that there are going to be more users interfacing with EOS blockchain apps in a year than there are now. But that might not necessarily be bullish for the token. I mean, Wax should be fucking $20 right now. If there was any reason in the numbers that everyone is paying attention to, right? The amount of throughput, the amount of economic activity, the amount of wallets, there's at least 4 blockchains that rhyme with Solana and Cardano that Wax should be well ahead of, right? So like that, like the price still in these days has a lot more to do with speculation than anything else. And speculation types have lost interest in EOS completely, right? And a rebrand isn't going to fix that. So having something that is that much more useful to the point where it just becomes the place where people have to be, which is possible. I think we, with ENF, with Pomelo, with the kinds of things that people are building, when you make a use case that people don't have a choice but to go there to do all the things, then the price will catch up to that eventually, just by dint of basic supply and demand economics. But that's probably not going to happen in 6 months. It's probably going to happen in like 5-6 years. So
yeah, I mean, what you might see is the Solanos of this world and everything else, they are new and they're fresh, and there's a lot of speculation around them. But actually, EOS has the infrastructure.
Yep.
It's battle tested.
Well, EOS actually works. Solana is still Solana down. Like, I don't know, right? Like exactly. That,
exactly.
It's like the remnants of people still buying an ICO, and there's a lot of bad feelings about EOS, and deserved, frankly, right? But like, looking at the community going, okay, like what can we pick up off the ground, dust off, and make something that will actually make the world a better place? And there's a really, really smart people collaborating in really epic ways to do that.
I think that's the key part, right? How do we make EOS make the world a better place? How do we make EOS stand for something bigger than itself, and certainly stand for something bigger than the price? Because it's not going to stand very tall on the back of the price. But I think if we can create that social movement, or that kind of whirlwind of change, and EOS is a critical catalyst of that change. If we can position it like that, then I think it can grow massively. I think the future is EOS is to make, but we just can't make the same mistakes again.
Right.
And I think the ENF is a great response to that. And let me ask you a question, actually. If the ENF hadn't come to light in August, September this year, where do you think you guys would be now? Would you be in the same place, different place, or anything else? Or had the ENF?
I wouldn't be talking about EOS at all.
That's what I suspected. Yeah.
No, without any reservation, EOS would not be on my radar. we were looking at building out some Atomic is on EOS. It'd be really easy for us to launch a world on EOS and have all the NFTs on EOS, yada yada yada, right? I put out a feeler like 6 months ago, and the response that I got back was like utterly anemic. Right? It's just there's no demand, there's like a few noisy people, and that's it, right? But now with Pomelo, with ENF, with what Dan's doing, like we're targeting EOS aggressively to have a small world and a presence there, because there is enough fire there that we think we can add some gasoline and some fuel to it and make it bigger and better and more contextual and last longer.
I think for me, it's a little bit disheartening because like one of the other jobs that I do in the space is I also work for a block producer in Australia. I work for Gener EOS. And so it's hard to work for, a failing currency, essentially, right? I mean, that's kind of why I'm leaving my jobs in the real world, because like if we had a proper valuation of technically speaking, UST, USDT, these should all be zero. The amount of the amount of economic turmoil that's happening out there with the real dollars that these are pegged to, right? So I think for me, again, it's it all goes back to like, how can we integrate that into the world to make it a better place, right? Which is bizarre because like we live in the metaverse half of the time, right? But like part of the reason that like this metaverse is so good is because there's a lot of really cool things that are integrated into it that actually make the real world a better place, believe it or not, right? Like, I mean, how often do you walk outside your door, meet your friend, sit down at a park and have a coffee, look at some cool art and get to say what you're grateful for? Not really freaking often, right? Like,
in the last 2 years, not at all.
Right? Like how, right? And how often do you get to see just the sheer passion and collaborative energy from a bunch of people who are around the world that don't even really speak the same language? They're conversing in their second languages, that are coming together and throwing up crazy art shows and trying to figure out how to put the metaverse into the real world. Like there's people like that are part of our community that are trying to do that, right? Like they're trying to put these galleries out there, right? So, I mean, I'm kind of with Corey on that. Like I think the ENF and the new drive and stuff like that, like, we do a show weekly, or we will do a show weekly on the Crypto Writer channel that's going to be basically EOS focused now, right? And we're going to, call it, EOS Writer, because that's where they started, right? But even they've moved away from that, right? Like even they're releasing things on other blockchains, which is great, right? But yeah, I think it's just going to be really interesting to see how this pans out. And I think, again, where Corey's right is it's just going to be really hard to win any of that old community back. Like it's going to be impossible.
Yeah,
there's too many.
The trick is not to try, right? Like
yeah,
that.
Right,
there's
exactly.
the number of people that were in EOS is a tiny fraction of the number of people that are in the world. Right. Build something that the world needs, right? This is conversation I have with people, whether it's about Uplift moving forward or Blue Dack or whatever. There's always a sense that like we need to go back to people that have become disheartened for whatever reason, right? Because not everything works out perfectly, and the number doesn't always go up instantaneously or whatever. And then we want to go back to get those people, and I ruthlessly never will. I'm not going to. Right? If you stop believing in what we're doing, you go do something else, great. It's a big internet. It's a big ecosystem. Go find that new flashy thing. Do it. Right? I'm going to be focused on making something really, really powerful with its own story and its own reason for being that is going to attract, some of the people that have never heard of NFTs before. And those people, once they see the fire, they'll come back, or they won't. Fuck it. Right? It's like you can just like trying to convince people that, have left to come back. It's a losing battle, and no one will ever win that battle. You're going to waste your energy.
And maybe a waste of, a waste of energy and resources. I mean,
right.
I think 99.9% of people who are going to be using EOS in 5 to 10 years haven't even used the blockchain yet.
So that's the whole show right there.
Yeah. So what we need to do is we need to build the products, but also the pipelines to bringing in the new users. And we need to do that as a collective. We need to all work together on that, and we will need to kind of agree on shared priorities, I think, for the community, and then drive forward for those priorities. If we can do that, if we can make the right apps and the right dApps and the right projects, then the users will come. If the users will come, more funding will come, then the devs will come. We'll train more devs anyway as a community. But then at that point, once we start tipping towards the critical mass, then probably the old devs will all come back as well, because
Yep.
I feel like they're missing out on it as well.
100%. And like side chains, and so I'm 10 minutes late for a meeting, so I got to run. Michael, you have to come back soon.
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to.
This is fantastic. If we want to do
enjoyed
like,
it.
yeah, it's really good. Feel free. You guys can keep hanging out. I gotta dip out.
Okay. See you later,
right.
Corey. Thanks a lot for having me.
Oh man, Michael, seriously, my baby's crying.
I like it, right? We'll finish up soon, but like I think like it's funny to me because like when I go to the shop, unless you're a hippie, you're not asking what kind of tree your toilet paper is made out of, right? like unless you're a hippie or an environmentalist, like you're not walking into the store and saying, hey, this box, like what's it made of? Oh, I'm not supporting that. Birch sucks. I want ash, right? like you're not doing that, right? And so like really when blockchain becomes mainstream, the only people that are really going to care about what blockchain something's running on are like, the blockchain hippies, really, like, but they're actually they're not hippies. They're more like, I don't know, freedom marchers or whatever. I don't know. But like I just, I mean,
it doesn't matter. No one cares that Facebook uses whatever Mongo database or a Post SQL, whatever. I'm not a backend engineer, but like these aren't important issues. The reason why EOS, I think, has had such a bad rep, aside from the drama around it, is because the speculators are disappointed they haven't been able to speculate accurately, and then they just badmouth it. They just talk shit about it. And ultimately, if you're a speculator, then that's fine. There's a role for everyone in the world, but like, you're just buying and selling an asset, and then you're declaring it, a shit coin or dog shit or whatever, just because you haven't managed to predict the market well enough. And the market hasn't moved like other cryptos, but some consistency in a price is not necessarily a bad thing for a currency. 50% swings is not great in a currency, but I wouldn't mind seeing a gradual, slow and steady increase in the value of the price, rather than the inverse. But someone who runs a business, knowing that EOS is going to range between $2 and $4, you can plan for that. You can act around that. It'd be great if it would. I mean, you alluded to 1,000 before. Probably not. I mean, we'd all be happy with $10, I would suggest. But having that range consistent, that allows us to plan for resources. That allows us to plan our business. And there isn't wild swings. And maybe there isn't wild swings because no one's speculating on it. And maybe that will turn out to be a really good thing in the long term. So long as we can weather this storm. And thanks to the ENF, thanks to the work of Pomelo, thanks to Eden, thanks to groups like you, I feel like we can ride out. I feel like we already have ridden out the storm, and we're probably on the second step on our march to the stairway to heaven.
Yeah, indeed, right? I'm excited to see what happens with it, and a lot of other blockchains too, right? Like in a lot of other projects. I mean, but so this has been a long time coming, Michael, because we had to reschedule a couple times before that. So I'm really glad that you finally made it. And I want to say it's interesting because you said, I think you said, I like hanging out and watching you guys sometimes, and I don't know, like I'm not really that much of an interesting person. I beg to differ. I would say you're probably one of the most interesting and well-spoken and intelligent guests that we've ever had on the show. So I second that with Corey. Please come back. These are super important conversations, right? Rather than just having conversations about number go uppy.
I'm rubbish at that, so
right.
It doesn't interest me.
And definitely, like if you're out there and you're listening to this back, because it is quite early. So basically, we've kind of it's.
No one's watching.
Yeah, right. But it's not because no one's there. It's because they're probably asleep.
Yeah. It's just because I'm on the channel.
Yeah. The lazy Californians haven't gotten up yet, and the right, the boring Aussies have went to bed. But like seriously, it's like,
boring Aussies.
Well, I mean, I was making a joke. Yeah, because it's like it's past midnight there now, right? But yeah, definitely come back. And if you're out there, you're waking up in the morning or whatnot, and you're watching this back, go check out Bywire News and register for account. Keep your eyes open over there. Like and subscribe to their Twitter and their other socials to see what's coming. Because I've honestly read some really good articles, and you guys do a really good job. There's some really good interviews on there that you can even catch up with blockchain information or other information as well. So thanks for joining us. And
My pleasure.
And actually, Corey and I will be back in about an hour. We're going to be on with Dan from Immersies. So if you're around, come check that out. They're having a property sale. I think it starts today, actually. Nice. For you guys. So come check that out. And we'll see you guys all